big news from Ukraine. It appears the Russian invasion is falling apart. Let's talk about it in today's video.
Вересня Коптівка перейшла під контроль Збройних сил України. 130-й ВАТ передає привіт всьому народу України. Наше завдання. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Слава Україні!
Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So I know it's been all over the news, and my viewers who probably keep up on things are probably aware of what's going on in Ukraine, but I just couldn't help but have a video on it. I'm so excited about what's going on there. As you know, I've been a long supporter of the Ukrainian cause, and I view their cause as standing up for democracy against autocracy, kind of like what we're trying to do here in the United States. But what's been occurring in Ukraine over the past week is downright shocking. Let's check out the map here. So here's the map that you've seen before. This is from the Deep State map, and of course I'll post a link to it down below. But what we expected was down here in the south. Let's just kind of zoom in a little bit here. Whoop, see if we can get in here, okay? Down here in the south. This is the Kherson Oblast, or the Kherson region. And for months now, we've been hearing from the Ukrainians about how they were going to start an invasion there. And in fact, a couple weeks ago, they started their invasion. You can see the green and the blue territory here. That's all areas that have been taken back by the Ukrainians from the Russians. The Russian territory is here in pink. Right here is Kherson. And the reason that's significant, of course, is that's the largest city that has been occupied by the Russians. And in fact, this is the place where the Russians had been talking about holding a referendum about annexing it, kind of the way that they did in Crimea, which is right down here. That annexation referendum, by the way, has been indefinitely postponed as a result of this counterattack by the Ukrainians. Check out, you can see the direction of the main counterattack right here, which is coming in. Let's just kind of zoom in a little bit further. And the reason this direction, of course, is particularly relevant is because right over here is a major dam, which has also been one of the main ways that Russians have been able to transport troops and supplies across the Dnipro River over here onto this side of their occupied territory. Now, the Ukrainians have done a great job of destroying this bridge over here, the Antonovka Bridge, as well as this rail bridge over here. And the Russians have periodically been setting up pontoon bridges, which one after another have been destroyed. And although they can't destroy the dam here, because of course it would result in a huge flood that would really probably create major casualties here downriver, they have done a good job of essentially destroying the roads leading up to it. So the goal is, I think, for them to get as quickly as possible to this dam. At the same time, they have also been making some progress over here, heading toward Kherson, and up here in the north. And you can see the progress that's been made when you look at the progress over time. Let's just kind of back up a few days here. And just a couple days ago, you can see where it was. And as the Ukrainians move forward and continue to occupy more territory, where it's kind of the faded out pink here, that means that the area is still somewhat contested, but essentially the Ukrainians have pushed into it. And the blue areas are the areas that are now firmly under control of the Ukrainians. Even more. So you can see the progress that's been made there. And then also, I believe there's been some progress down here, which is worth taking a look at. No, not a lot down here for the past couple days. And up here, let's just check this out. There you go. A little bit of progress there. But you can see that the major amount of progress is being made here in the main thrust. But that being said, it just kind of doesn't feel like it's moving very quickly, does it? And that's because the Russians had a lot of warning that there was going to be an invasion here. I mean, this seemed like a logical place for the Ukrainians to mount their counterattack because, of course, it's the only area on this side of the Dnipro River And the Ukrainians have done a good job of essentially isolating the troops over here. It said there are as many as 25,000 troops stuck over here. And they can't bring in additional supplies. The problem is, obviously, they've got a lot of supplies there, so it's just taking time for the Ukrainians to essentially push through that. But what was unexpected was while the Ukrainians were talking up their counterattack that was coming in the south, they weren't talking about their counterattack that was coming in the north. Now check out the progress here. This is really unbelievable. Okay, this is only going back about 5 days now. Just look at the progress the Ukrainians have made. And I believe that these maps are actually incomplete, not even showing the full amount of the Ukrainian attack. Over here, this was a particularly valuable city for the Ukrainians to gain. It's Kupiansk. Reason being that there is essentially, you can see some roads coming together there and railroads, and also it's kind of at the headwaters of this water feature here that basically divides the Russian-occupied territory from the area that the Ukrainians are trying to take. So taking Kupiansk was a key victory. But it didn't stop there. Let's just back out a little bit and continue forward. Oh, boy, that must hurt Putin, my guess is. This city here is really quite key, actually. This is called Izium. This was actually the largest base for Russian troops here in this part of the country. Essentially, it was the headquarters for one of 4 Russian commands. This one, then there are 2 in the Donbass region, and then 1 down in the south. So the Ukrainians taking Izium was a huge victory, and essentially makes it much more difficult for the Russians to move supplies down from here, Belgorod, which is in Russia, down into their territory, and then over to the eastern part of the invasion. And you can see all of the arrows here pointing toward Ukrainian progress. They're just continuing to move there. And the word is, for all intents and purposes at this point, they have retaken the entirety of the Kharkiv Oblast. The only question that remains is, how far can they keep going? As the Russians are retreating in full chaos, leaving equipment behind them, as they're desperately trying to get away from the Ukrainian military that's being greeted as heroes by the Ukrainians that they're liberating. Amazingly, the territory that Ukraine has liberated amounts to more than 3,000 square kilometers. That's more territory in 1 week than the Russians have taken in 5 months. And it's resulted in the Russians one day saying, oh, we're moving reinforcements into the area to stop the Ukrainian advance. And then the very next day saying, oh no, we're just repositioning our troops. Regrouping, as they say. Oh yeah, we meant to do that. That's the ticket, right? This Ukrainian counteroffensive is turning into a major black eye for Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who, in addition to the criticism that he was dealing with from people opposed to the war, is now dealing with criticism from people who favor the war, because they're saying that he essentially left these troops there with insufficient equipment and supplies to defend themselves. And it just shows that really the Russians at this point have been so beaten down, they really don't have the manpower or the equipment to continue to move forward with their invasion. And it's even questionable at this point if they're even going to be able to hold onto the territory that they've already occupied. Estimates are that they've lost as many as 80,000 troops, far more than they lost in the entirety of the time that they occupied Afghanistan, and many times more than what the United States lost in both Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, President Putin announced that he was going to increase the size of his military up to about 1.2 million service members, but he may as well have said that he was increasing the size of his military up to 1 billion service members, because it's not like there are a bunch of people sitting there waiting to be sent over to Ukraine. And it's worth noting that while the Russian military includes over 1 million service members, a substantial number to be sure, that includes everybody who's in the Navy and who are serving in other parts of the world. So the actual number of troops who are in Ukraine has been estimated to be about 200,000, which gives you a full sense of what losses of 80,000 have meant to them. So what is Putin going to do? Well, his options are pretty limited. One of the things that he's been seriously resistant to is starting a draft. And it's understandable why he doesn't want to do that. I mean, the institution of the draft here in the United States is basically what turned Americans against the Vietnam War. So if Putin wants to maintain support for his war, or his special military operation, as he insisted should be called, he's going to want to avoid implementing a draft. And he's even having trouble coming up with supplies at this point. I mean, American intelligence announced that he was getting artillery shells from North Korea. When you're having to turn to North Korea for your supplies, it really says something about your supply situation. So the bigger question now, more and more, is people are wondering if Putin is going to be able to survive this. If ever Putin appeared to be the potential target of a coup, I think you could say now's the time. But before you start celebrating too much, the problem is many of the people who'd institute a coup are even more hardcore than Putin on the goal of invading Ukraine. And they might be even less hesitant than Putin to engage in things like, tactical nuclear warfare. So it's kind of a scary time right now. All we can do is wait and see what happens and continue to support our Ukrainian brothers and sisters who are fighting against this authoritarian invasion. Well, if you want to check out a video that I made a long time ago where I predicted that the Russians would be in trouble as a result of their invasion, check this one out over here. Months ago, I predicted that Russia was not going to be able to sustain this invasion, and I was attacked for making that argument by people claiming that I was buying into Ukrainian propaganda. Well, just check out what's happening here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.